Hi, my name's Zoe. I'm a software engineer and former professor, and today we're going to be working on building out part 3 of a full stack e-commerce site. This is part 3 in the tutorial. Parts 1 and 2 are linked below if you want to check those out. Just to give you an idea of what we're working on today, we're working on building out this site right up here in the corner, and we've done a pretty solid job so far. We have the actual homepage ready to go, and then when we click on any of the products, we only have one product linked so far, but when we click on any of those products, it's going to actually show us the product name, the information, and this is being generated dynamically based on an API we set up in part 1. So if you haven't checked that out and you do want to see that, check it out, link down below. I also have the code that I'll be working on here pushed to GitHub, and that GitHub repository linked below. And if you want to just check out a fully functioning version of the site, you can also find that in the description as well. So today we're going to be working on continuing to build out the website, continue to build out this e-commerce site right here. We're going to do things like touching up the styles, moving around some of the buttons, and finishing out these pages so that we can actually access more than one product. Because right now we're only able to access this one product, but if you check out the real version of the site, the original, you can see that there's a lot more going on the page. You know, there are headphones pages, there are speakers pages. So there are a lot of things that we still have to build out. There's some more work we can do in the cart there. So let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen fully. All right, cool. So if you do have any questions, or if you're not able to see me or anything like that, please just let me know. And yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started on this. So the next thing that we have our page right here. The next thing I want to do today, or the first thing I should say I want to do today, is touch up some of the styling. So I'm actually going to touch up this styling, and I think I'm going to move this count. I'm going to pull up a way for us to see the count up in the card here. So let's head over to the product page right here. And let's see. This is going to be the product.price. Here it is. So we want the product.price to be formatted in a way that sort of tells us that it is a price. So one quick thing I can do right now is just drop a $sign in front of that so that we know that whatever is here actually has a price on it. Awesome. So that's pretty good for me right now. A small modification, but still gives us some extra features there. All right, next thing I'm going to want to do is add some padding to the bottom of this. So again, using the SX prop that Material UI offers, I'm going to add some margin to the bottom, actually. Margin of, let's say 1 rem for now, and we're going to save that. Maybe we'll make it 1.5. And then I'm also going to make the font a little bit more pronounced. I'm going to say font weight of, let's say 700. We'll save that. All right, cool. I think maybe I'll increase that margin just so it matches on top, so the top and the bottom are a little closer in size. But yeah, I think that's pretty decent for now. We can go ahead and move on with that. So now that we have that there, one thing that I don't know if you remember from yesterday or the day before is that when we're adding to cart, we weren't seeing the count show up here. So let's go ahead and make that happen. So one thing I'm going to want to do here for now, I'm going to take this, this whole product counter, which is sort of giving us the ability to add our count. I'm just going to move it back into the product page here and save that. And then I'm going to go ahead and rename these to be MUI buttons because we do have 2 different types of buttons. So we want these to be MUI buttons, and we'll save that. And then we will also copy over the count information. So this is like a quick way to fix it. There are definitely better ways to fix this, as I mentioned, but we're trying to sort of get to a final version of this website. So we're going to use this as our solution for the time being. All right, I'm going to update that import. And then, like we had before, we're just going to set the count here to be the count. We're going to save that. Awesome. So now if I refresh and I add to cart, you'll see I have the little 2 here. Let's go ahead and touch that up so it's more pronounced. We can actually see it a little bit better. So hopping over into the cart now, you'll see that we have the product count here on line 66. Let's go ahead and sort of style that as its own thing. So I think what I'm going to want to do here is give it some margin left of maybe 1 rem. We're going to save that. And then, yeah, that looks not bad. Actually, you know what I could do? I wonder if, let's see how it's spaced. This whole box is spaced. oh yeah, so we haven't actually set it to space between. So let's justify content and set it to space between. That should actually just fix our problem there. Space between. Let's save that. All right, awesome. So yeah, we can get rid of that margin left. We don't need it anymore. So what we did right there is just set this, the outer box that contains this element. These two are together in one box, one element. And then this singular element on the right, we just set the space between so that there is some space between those elements. All right, and hello from Syria. Nice to see you, nice to meet you, and thanks for tuning in today. So the next thing we're going to want to do here, I'm just going to make that a little bit bold so we can sort of distinguish it from the other elements in the cart. All right, cool. And maybe I'll put something like number, like a number sign, or maybe number of items. Save that. No, I think we can just leave it as 2. You know what? Maybe I'll put like a larger header here. So we'll do this. We'll say like items, item count. There we go, item count. And we'll set this. We'll create a box around here and set this to be a flex box. So this is just to better identify what the count is. We're kind of shifting from the design a little bit, but sort of to the goal of getting us completed. All right, display flex, and then flex direction column. And yeah, again, if you do have any questions, please drop them in the chat. Would love to hear from you guys, and if you do have any questions. Cool. Item count, awesome. And then I'm gonna set the size of this font size to be like 0.5 rem. I don't want it to be really big. That's maybe a little too small. Maybe I could just change it to count and set it to 0.75 rem. Awesome. And then I just want to align the items. So justify content, flex end. So I want them, or it might be actually align items to flex end, because I want them to be on the end of the, yeah, on the end, sort of right align there. All right, cool. Yeah, so as I said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Let me know. I do think you do have to be subscribed for a couple of minutes to submit in the chat. Or if you're watching this later, please feel free to leave a comment below. I do go back and like respond to comments and answer any questions that folks might have. All right, so the next thing that we're going to do now, so we have our headphones, we have our count. The next thing that we're going to want to do, as I mentioned before, and we can also remove all, we added that yesterday. I should also fix that little bug there. But we can go ahead and we can sort of start to add out our other items, our other access points, and style out those other pieces. So if you go back to our home page, let's start with our home page here. So if we look at the original version of the app, you'll notice that there are these cards here that have headphones, speakers, and earphones. And then when you go to those pages, you actually have all of these products available, which is pretty cool. So I think the first thing I'm going to want to do is just finish building out this page so that we're able to access all of these additional products. So first things first, I'm going to create probably the card for this and then just reuse those images as need be. So let's head over to our components folder, and we're probably going to need to create a new one, a new file, and call it like category card.tsx. We're going to save that and create that new component. We're going to save that. All right, awesome. So then we are going to have, this is going to be imported on our home page in our index here. And so what we're going to do for that is we are going to end up looping through. So we could really do something really simple like const categories equals, what were they? Headphones, speakers, and earphones. So we say headphones, and we'll make this an array. So headphones, speakers, and earphones. And we'll save that, and then we can map over those. So we can go categories dot map. And for each category, we want to go ahead and return a category card. And I'll probably like take a param of category that is of whatever the category is. So this is just a way for us to pass in essentially what we are essentially pass in these three categories and iterate, and then really quickly, I'm gonna actually move this over so we don't have to scroll so much, and really quickly come up with these three categories because they're pretty similar. The only difference is they link to different, they're different URLs. So let's head over to category card and finish building this out. So first things first, I'm gonna wanna create a props interface. So we stop getting that type error, and we're going to say category, and it's going to be of type string for now. I say for now because maybe we want to pass in something else later with the category, maybe a slug or something like that, but for now, we're just going to pass in the string of category. All right, awesome. And so if we go to our page here, we can't see it just yet. I think they're probably just hidden down there. So we have, oh, and you know what? I'm still getting an error here. Category card to categories not map, category. Okay, so I think because this is a Next.js page, it does not like that we're doing a map in there. So what I can just actually do is create a category card container and do exactly what I'm doing here in that file. So I'm just gonna copy this logic, create the component, and then copy this logic. Just remove this from here and put that there. Save that, and then remove the categories from here and put them in here. Save that. Void array is not assignable to React node. Import from category card. All right, let me sort of back it up step by step. So let's create one category card, and we'll pass in category as headphones and see. All right, so that does work. I'm not sure why it's giving us trouble. We can sort of troubleshoot that later. If you do have thoughts, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions on the matter. But what we'll do, we'll just manually put it in for now. So speakers and earphones. And then we'll bring in this category card container right here. Or actually, we don't even need the category card container. We can literally just drop this in here because it seems to be the same error that we're getting. So no need for a container. We can get rid of that. Awesome. Cool. So now you see we have three category cards that are at the bottom of our project here. Awesome. But the next thing we want to do is actually, we want to basically show them in a way that, looks more like this. So we want to get that white background. We want to, create these individual card components. So first things first, let's create the sort of larger box that it's going to live in. So I'm literally going to create a box. And import it from Material UI. And again, a box is just like a div. It just allows you to use the SX props that are available in Material UI, which is pretty cool. Cool, awesome, there we go. So the box is gonna be there. And then we're gonna say that the height of this is maybe, I don't know, let's say 20, or let's say 30 view height. And save that. And then the, I'm going to say the background color is going to be white. We'll save that. All right, good to go. It's interesting that it is overlapping the page though. So maybe we need to double check the height of our next page. Oh, you know what? It's because it is within our next page. That's the issue there. So what I think I need to do is actually move this height to be in a box around. This is an interesting problem to solve. I think what I probably need to do is move this outside of this div and then make another div around it. That's probably the way to go. So grab that, wrap that around here, and save that. Cool, that's what I'm expecting. All right, so yeah, the issue was that we had this whole hero sort of wrapped in a div that was wrapping the entire project, so that when we put in the category card container, it basically was within that, and that's not what we want. We want it separately. So I think we can also take out this background color white, because that is the default, and save that. And yeah, there we go. We have our category cards there. So next thing we want to do is actually create these cards. Change this to a display flex, so that we have them in Flexbox, and then wrap it in a container as well, so that the so that the padding or the margin is the same as well. So we'll save that. All right, awesome, cool, looking pretty cohesive. So, and we know we'll end up moving the display flex to our container. Cool, there we go. Awesome, and then we want to justify our content, just like we did earlier, to be space between, so that we get the maximum amount of space between these elements. Awesome, looking pretty good. So next thing we want to do is go ahead and find these assets. So if we hop back into our public assets folder, as we've used in the past, we can go ahead and, let's see, it might be on home, the home page. Check out our desktop. Earphones, image hero, speaker, not those. Maybe it's in shared. Let's check out desktop. Speaker. We want one with that's like a PNG. Here we go. These are the images. All right, perfect. So these are the images we want to use. Let me grab the first one of headphones, and let's start styling out our first card. All right, so for the card, based on what the category is, we want to return a different thumbnail. The really awesome thing is that we can actually sort of bake in the image that we're using here, and then just change the name of the category itself. So let me show you what I mean. So let's go ahead and import an image here. So go image, this is from Next image, and then we're going to say source equals, and then we are going to copy the path from here and drop it in, and then remove this piece right here. And we also need some other props. I think we need a width. Let's give it 100, and we're going to give it a height of 100 as well, just to start out with. And then we are going to give it an alt of whatever category it is. So we're trying to start by making this dynamic to begin with. We're going to save that. All right, awesome, really great. So we have our images populating there, and well, we can get rid of category card. We can actually just add a typography element here. Make it a variant of maybe H2, and then pass in the name of the category there. So I'm really trying to make this dynamic from the beginnings to save some time and reiteration. Maybe an H3 or revision, maybe H4. Cool, that looks pretty decent. Awesome. All right, so then, yeah, we have our headphones, speakers, and earphones, but we're only just showing the headphones, right? So remember when I said we can sort of use the category to our advantage? What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to pass in the name of the category and see what that gives us. So you'll see right here already, it's transformed our headphones to headphones, our speakers to speakers, and our earphones to earphones. Pretty cool, right? So because the name of the, let me show you on the index page here. Because the name of each category is the same name as the slug, we can use it interchangeably in order to get what we're looking for. So it's there's a little cool hack that you can use with React. So we'll go ahead with this. I'm just going to touch up the styling a little bit more to make it a little bit more just like what the design shows. So we're going to say display flex, justify content, center, save that. Oh yeah, and then flex direction is going to be column. We're going to save that. And, oh, you know what? It's going to be a line item center then. So when you change the flex direction, you do have to change the way that you're centering it because you're basically flipping it, right? You're turning it. So yeah, your align items is now going to be your center point. All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and make these a little bit bigger. I think we probably double or triple them in size. Let's try 300 for each. Pretty good. Maybe 250 is like the sweet spot there. Cool. That looks pretty good. Maybe they're a little bit stretched in the height factor. Maybe I can change that. Or 225. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. The next thing that we're going to want to do is maybe I'll take off this height and actually add just margin. To the top and the bottom there. Awesome. The next thing we're going to want to do is add in this like square block situation. This is going to be our real challenge here. And we want to add in this shop button. So two things. Let's finish up with the actual styling of it. So let's say the category card, we're going to say we want to add in a link here. Link is going to be, it's going to say shop in all caps. And then the source or the href. The href is going to be it's going to be slash whatever the category is. So if it's headphones, if it's speaker, etc., we're just going to have it slash category. Awesome. Cool. So you're trying to use it to our dynamic advantage there. So we have our shop. We have, let me change the color there. I'm trying to get all the styling done so that when we focus on the logic, it's literally just the logic. But, sorry, we'll see where we get with that. Add in the style prop. So this is actually from this link prop, or the link element, I should say, is from Next.js, not Material UI, so we can't use the SX, but we can use the just the regular old style prop. And then we will add some margin bottom to this, to our category itself. Cool. Oh, and then we also want to text transform it, so it's uppercase. I like using text transforms instead of hard coding it most of the time, just because it allows flexibility if we want to change it down the road. Uppercase. Save that. Yeah, it allows flexibility down the road if we do want to change things. So then the next thing I'm going to want to do here too is I'm going to change the size of the font. So I'm going to say font size is going to be, let's say 2 rem here, and save that. Maybe even a little bit smaller. Let's say 1 rem, 1.5 rem. Pretty good. And then I think this is going to be the same default black, but yeah, we're good with that. All right, so yeah, let's add in this background box situation. Let me grab the color for that. It's going to be F1, F1, F1. And we're going to put this, where should we put this? There are a couple of different ways we could do this. We could do this as like a separate box where it lives underneath, so it lives like underneath all of this, but it is not the entire box here. So let me see if I can show you on the example here. So if we go to category image, headphones, we have the link, and then we have the category background. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to borrow this this sort of styling idea, and then just set this as like a separate div, and and make the sort of the styling around that. So let me go ahead and create this box at the bottom, and then we are going to set the background color to F1, 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 and then we're going to set the width to 100%, and then we're going to set the height to, let's say, 4M, and see what that gives us. All right, cool. So it's working, which is awesome. Let's set it to maybe 10 RAM. Save that. That looks more the right size. Now we just need to transform it, translate it. So we're gonna try position. Let's try position absolute. Save that. All right, maybe position relative might be better because we do want it to consider the sides of the box as well. All right, that works well. And then we want to move it up a little bit. So we'll try bottom, maybe minus 150. You have to say pixels. Oh no, reverse that, plus 150 pixels. All right, that's like pretty close to what we want. Maybe 200 is better. And then, oh no, 150 was good. And then we want the Z index to change. So what the Z index is going to do is just set it behind the elements that we have currently. So we're going to set the Z index to, like, let's see what happens if we do -1. Awesome. All right, that works pretty well. So one thing I have noticed, however, is that it is a little bit wider. Let me take a look at this and see what we're working with here. So you'll see that there is some space in between each of the elements. Like it's basically only as wide as it's sort of like deciding to be. So what I'm going to do is increase the width for the larger overall box. I'm going to say min width is going to be, let's say 10 view width and see what that gives us. Or maybe I'll set it to 25. So you can see. All right, that's a lot. That's a little too big, but let's maybe 20 or 18 would be good. That's a little bit closer to our design. Awesome. All right, cool. I think I'm going to increase the height of the background, maybe to 15 rem. Maybe not so much, maybe to 12 rem. And I'm going to move up the bottom a little bit to maybe 175. You know, maybe it can actually increase because it looks like in the design here, it cuts basically lower third of whatever the image is and then does have some significant spacing on the bottom. So let's see, 14 rem. And then we'll translate it up just a touch, maybe to 200. Yeah, that's like pretty close, 185. I'm not going to sort of force the pixel perfectness of this, but we'll get it pretty close. All right, that's pretty close. And then taking a look at this, this does actually feel a little bit taller. You know what I think it is? I think the image is also closer to the title as well here. Let me take a look at this. Oh, that's pretty decent. All right, we'll leave that alone. Let's see. And you know what? Instead of view width, I'm going to just set it to pixels or rem. So I'm going to say maybe like 10 rem as the min, or 20 rem as the min. That way it's a little bit more consistent. Yeah, let's go back to 20. All right, cool. That's like pretty decent for now. So we have our headphones, our speakers, and our earphones. Right now, we don't go anywhere with these links, but we do have them working. We do have this category card component working. I do think we will actually end up using this in other places. So if I go to like the headphones page, we do have this repeated component here. So I am actually going to drop this into a container. So I'm going to recreate that container and call it category card container.tsx. And I'm going to just drop what we have in index into category card container. Whoops. Make it a component first, then drop it in. Add all of those imports. Cool. And then just have category card container here. Oops, container. Awesome. Cool. And so the page should look exactly the same. Awesome. So we know it's working well. Cool. So let's move to the next reusable component. Next one we're going to work on here is this No, not there. Next one we're going to work on, are these large cards. So this is going to take us to these different products. So we're actually going to be able to see different products, which is pretty cool. This will help us debug our cart a lot because I'm sure there's some bugs in there that we need to fix. So let's see if this is used in anywhere else. Let me take a look at the speakers page. No, it seems like this is a single use situation for this component. For all three of these, it looks like, and I think this one is reused in the individual product pages. Yeah, this is reused. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just build out these individual components for themselves, and then move from there. So this looks pretty straightforward. I'm going to go ahead and grab this color and start building it out. So on our home page, I think we can just create it as a box. We're going to say the background color is that. Whoops. This color here. Save that. Another really cool thing about Material UI is that you can actually add, like this is a pretty common color that we've used all around our app. You can actually go ahead and add this to the styles, to the theme, and then we can just reference it much more simply. Not going to do that right now, but definitely something to think about in terms of optimizations in the future. All right, so we have our Z9 speaker, and actually the font here and the font that we're using for the header here for our hero page are pretty similar. So let me see what I did in that hero, and I'm just going to grab that same styling. So grab that, and then we will head over to back to our index page here, and we'll drop that in there. Save that, import typography. There we go. And we'll change it to at least an H2 because we do not want it to, every page should only have one H1, so we don't want to confuse that for accessibility purposes. And then we're going to copy the name. So it is the ZX9 speaker. Save that there. And what else? Oh yeah, we do want to change the color. So the color should be white. And actually all the colors within this box should be white. So I can probably just hoist it up here and say color white. Save that. Awesome. And then we want this like text there. And again, this and that are pretty close. So I'm just going to go ahead back to my hero and borrow this body element. I'm just trying to be as efficient as possible with what we have to work with. And then just copy over the actual text. Copy that text over there. Awesome. And then at the bottom now, we're just going to need that button. So we're going to go ahead and import the button. This is the button that we've created. And it's going to say C product. And then here we're missing, what is color and variant. So color, I'm pretty sure is going to be black. And variant, which is like a Material UI option, is going to be contained because it's a contained button. They have, I think, outlined and another type of variant. So we have our buttons here. This, oh, you know what? I added the color. So let me remove that. All right, cool. The last thing we want to do here is drop in our actual image. Well, a couple of things we want to do. Let's wrap this. This needs to be wrapped in a nav, or sorry, in a container. And honestly, I think everything could just be wrapped in a container going forward, but save that. Cool. Gives it some boundaries there. And then, yeah, we need that image. So let's go ahead and find that image. And what I'm going to do also is I'm going to wrap all the text, because all the text is going to be on the right side. I'm going to wrap this in a box and then have the image on the next side, so that when I go to make it a flex box, it's just that much easier. So I'm going to go ahead and import the image from next image. The source is going to be, let's go ahead and find it. It's going to be on the home page, desktop, I think ZX9 speaker. Yeah, that should be the one. Copy the relative path there, and we're going to drop that in, move the public, save that. Awesome. So let's go ahead and set those other attributes. So the alt text is going to be ZX9 speaker. The width is going to be 100%. Whoops, 100%. Let's see, let's do that. Oh, it does not like that. needs to be a number. All right, the width, we're gonna say, let's say 250, and then the height, let's say 400. Cool, and we'll save that. Awesome. And it's a little squished, so let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's say 300. And it's a little small, so maybe we can say 400 width. And then move it so that it is maybe 500 height. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, awesome. So, oh, and sorry, one other thing I just noticed we're missing is these like background decorative rings. So what we can do, we can just add that as another image at the bottom of our box here. So we'll just throw that in as like a background image here. That's going to be, I think, pattern circles. That seems to be the one that we'll need. And we'll grab that, drop that in here, put that like there. And then we do have our pattern circles in the bottom there. Probably can make them a little bit bigger because they are going to end up sort of living behind, just like how we did our category cards and this box down here with the relative position and the negative z index. We're probably going to do the same thing here. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and add those props here and save that. All right, it might take it too far down if I do that. All right. Change these to 700 each. All right, we can find that in a second. But let's finish up with our flex box in the middle here. So for the box here, we're gonna set it to be display flex. Save that. And then, awesome, we're already seeing everything come together. And then we have, let's see what we have. We have our image, we have our box. Oh, and then we have a third image here, which is, or is that living? Yeah, that's a third separate sort of thing here. So what we want to do, I think, actually, is just drop this image with this image and wrap these two in a box. I think that's probably the best way of going about this. Save that. Cool, awesome. And then, yeah, let's add in sort of the padding that needs to happen to make this work. All right, so display flex, we're going to say align items center. So it'll align them vertically center. And then I think this has a decent amount of margin on each side, this being the image. So let's say style equals margin top, and let's see, we're gonna say top maybe 3 rem, bottom is 0, top right is gonna be probably 4 rem, bottom is 0, left is gonna be another 4 rem, and we're gonna save that. Okay, looking pretty decent. Maybe we can increase those 4s to be like, I don't know, like 8 or 10. Save that. Awesome, that's looking a lot better. And then, oh, this needs to be a little bit smaller. So maybe what we could do here for our typography box, we could just say we have a margin right of like 4 rem. See if that makes it. That does make a difference. All right, let's up it to maybe 10 and just make it a little bit more slim. Perfect. All right, that looks pretty close, pretty decent. I think the last thing I want to do is just add a little bit more height here and move the rings over to the left here. So to add a little bit more height, let's go to the outside of our box here. Let's see if, I wonder if I add like margin here, if it will just, oh, it'll just push it up. That's pretty convenient. So that's probably what I'm just going to do. I'm going to change this to like maybe 7 rem. And that'll just give us a little bit more space vertically. And then, yeah, let's move these rings over. So position absolute, let's say left 0. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, that's going to take the page left. Let's say left 50. or left 200, or left 500. All right, cool. So we don't need this to be like exactly like perfectly dead on accurate. Like it's a stylistic thing we're adding, but I will try and get it pretty close. So let's say z index -1. That's too far back. Z index 1. And then what I could just do is raise the z index of this. Let's say z index of 4. No, that's not working for us. That's interesting. I wonder if I change the order, if that makes a difference. Let me refresh. No, it's still there. All right. Let me take a look at this one here. I'm actually not sure why I added this in last time. Background image. Ah, there we go. So I had it as the background image. So that's what I'll do. I'll just, instead of dropping it in as the image, I'll drop it in as the background image. That makes more sense. All right, so background, color, and then background image. Yeah. Because the problem with moving the Z index is that it does move it behind the background itself, which is not ideal. And then I'm going to need to get rid of this so that we actually see if it's working or not. Cool, save that. All right, so we're not seeing it. Let me see what else I did here. Background should be showing up. Position, color, background, repeat, no repeat. Let's see. Oh, you know what? It might also just need the dot to be found. No, still not seeing it. Let's go ahead and inspect and see what's going on here. All right, so we have the container, we have the box. Oh, it's giving us an error here. Let's see what the error is. Invalid property value. Oh, you know what? I think it needs, yeah, it needs a URL. That's what it is. Very important. I think this needs to be wrapped. No. All right, cool. There we go. Now it's working. All right, awesome. So background image is that. And then we'll say background repeat. Say no repeat. Save that. Oops. Save that there. Cool. And there we go. We have our background image showing up behind our speaker, which is pretty cool. So I'm pretty happy with that. We could like do a little bit of modification, like background position X, and maybe move it over a little bit. So maybe minus 150 or something like that. Move it a little bit to the left, I think, 150 pixels. That'll give us a bit of a closer look there, but I'm pretty content with how we've got it. All right, so let's go ahead and add in the next portion here. So and I'm actually gonna just quickly drop this in a component. So I'm gonna say new file, this is gonna be the, let me go ahead and actually make a folder. I'm going to make a new folder and I'm going to call it home. And then I'm going to create a new file within this and I'm going to call it ZX9 speaker.tsx. Because we're really just going to only use this for the ZX9 speaker display. We may one day in the future use it for something else and then we could go ahead and rename it. But rather than sort of clogging up the home page with all of this information, I'm just going to go ahead and put it within this file instead. So we'll save that. We'll go ahead and import all of our missing imports and save that. Go ahead and get rid of this because we don't need it. Oh, and I think this is probably importing it from the wrong, or no, it hasn't been imported at all. Let's go ahead and import it from next image. And we'll get rid of some of these extra imports here. I'm trying to keep this page, like this file, as clean as possible because it'll make debugging a lot easier. And then, oh, and this is the wrong button. And that's my fault. Need to import the button. Import button from // button. Awesome. Import button. Yes. Cool. Awesome. Oh, and then we should import because that would really help us be able to see it. So we'll say ZX9 speaker and oops, there we have it. All right, awesome. So our ZX9 speaker is populating. Great. Let's add in a little bit of margin to the bottom here. Or maybe we'll just add in the, we could remove, we can add in some of the margin here. So we say margin bottom, let's say 3 rem, maybe 5 rem. And then we will go ahead and build up the next component. All right, so the next one we have is the ZX7 speaker. So again, pretty similar setup, except even fewer things. And you can actually see there's an error on this side. So we can make it a little bit better this time. So let's go ahead and create our ZX7 speaker. So we'll create a new file, ZX7 speaker.tsx. Create the component. We'll wrap it in a container from MUI. And then we will create a typography. Well, actually, we can borrow the typography element because, as I said, the design and the styling is similar to other places we've used it. Although it's these two that are similar. So maybe we'll just create our own thing for this one. All right, we'll create a typography element. And we'll say the variant is H4, and then it'll say ZX7 speaker. We'll save that. And then we need the C product button, which also reminds me that we didn't hook up the button, which is like the most important part of this. So we'll add C product here, and we'll import this from our button, and we'll pass in the variant of outlined, and then the color will be null, because I don't think we need a color for this, or I don't think we want a color for that one. Also, we'll import it to our page so we can see what we're doing. ZX7 speaker, save that. Okay, cool, pretty close. Or maybe I can say the color is black. I don't know if that's gonna actually change the outline. No, it's gonna change the background. Yeah, we don't want that. All right, so we'll work on the coloring later. And then let's take a look at this image they've given us to work with. So the ZX7, oh, it's like the whole background. So I guess we can just actually make this the background image. Background image is URL, brackets. We'll grab this, we'll copy the relative path, we'll put that in there. Move this a little bit here. Oops, save that. Actually, I think we'll move the quotes to the outside and fix that. And then we'll fix that error that we saw on the other page. We'll say background repeat. No repeat. And cool, working. And then we just want to set like a height of like, I don't know, let's say 20 rem, start there. And then a width of 100%. And looks like we're getting a funky margin there, so we'll take a look at that in a second. Or maybe I need to place this on the box instead of the container surrounding the box. Import box. Still getting a funky margin. Maybe it's just because the image isn't large enough. So maybe if I increase the size of the image here to like 120, 200. Or maybe the height needs to change as well. That could also be it. Let's close that, refresh, and change the height to, let's say, 40 rem. And width to 150. Oh, you know what? I think there's a background size property. That's probably what I need to be working on. Yeah, background size. We can say cover. That's what we're going to do. All right, so we'll say, what are we getting an error for now? Oh, it's missing the other half of button. Save that. Yeah, we'll say background size. We'll say cover. I'll save that. Okay, perfect. Awesome. So we can get rid of the, well, what if we get rid of this? Well, we'll leave that for now. All right, cool. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we have our speaker, we have our button. Let's hook up these C products because that's sort of like essential to what we're doing here. We want to actually be able to see the products. So there are two ways we can do this. We can either use the existing ID that we associate with the speaker, or we can change the whole sort of way we do slugs. I think we're going to save our refactor work for a little bit later. So let's start by updating it so that we use the actual ID. So we can, how do we know the ID? We can go to our data, go to our data.json, and we can grab the Z9 speaker is ZX9. ZX9 is ID2, ID4, sorry. ZX9. Okay, it's ID6. ZX9 speaker is ID6. So it's not just a C product button, but it's also a link that is going to take us to 6, which is going to, yeah, it's going to be href/6. So let's go here. I'll put in the href of 6. Oops, 6. Save that. And we'll import link from next link. Cool. So we go back down here. When we hit C product, it'll take us to the product page. Awesome. Let's hook up the next one. So the ZX7 speaker. Let's go back over here. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to wrap that there. And then it's the ZX7. It's ID 5, so we'll just pass in ID 5 and we'll save that there. Oh, import link from next link. And if we hook that up correctly, awesome, we're going to that speaker page. Perfect. So let me just finish styling this around and then we can move on to the next one, which should be super quick to set up because we already have sort of like the foundation of what we need for it. So let's go ahead and finish up the speaker information there on the left side. So let's say display is going to be flex. Love a good flex box. And then flex direction is going to be column. Save that. And then we want to justify content to be center. Or no, justify content is flex start. So we can leave that alone. We'll say align items to be center. Save that. Oh no, it was justify content because we did change it. All right, justify content to be center. And then we want to just add a little margin left. So margin left is going to be, let's say like 4 rem, and we'll save that. No, not, oh, that's the whole box I'm doing it on, my bad. I want to do it on just the stuff in here. So let me wrap this in a box, and we'll add in SX and add that margin there. Okay, cool, perfect. And then I'll add in a little margin bottom to my typography. So just fix up that style there. Margin bottom of 1 rem. And as I said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I will check and respond periodically. Oh, question already. Are you using Next router? Yes, I'm using the Next, all of the sort of baked in links that Next provides. Yeah, using sort of the baked in Next router. I have used the React router in the past, and that has worked well for me, but this seems to be a little bit more straightforward because we're already using Next.js. Good question. But yeah, if you do have any other questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. All right, so we have our speaker there. We have our product button there. Let's go ahead and create the next component here. Let's create this image on the left and this like earphones on the right. Cool. So next file, it is the, should have looked it up, YX1 earphones, new file. YX1 earphones.tsx, and we'll save that. Cool, save that. Wrap it in a container. And then, oh, we want to import it onto our main page because otherwise you can't see it. All right, so we'll drop that in here. YX1 earphones. Awesome. There we go. Cool. So there they are right at the bottom there. What this one now consists of is 2 pieces. So I think I'm going to make the outside, I'm going to wrap the outside and make it a flex box. So we're going to have one image, one item on the left, one item on the right. And then, yeah, we're going to just have the same typography style of heading and then the product button, which we're going to have to modify down the line. So I'm going to wrap this in a box and import that from Material UI. And then I'm going to go ahead and set the display to be flex. And that's good. And then within that now, I'm going to create my, or grab my image from Next, or build it out. And then it's going to be the earphone. So I'm going to copy the path here and drop that in as the source here. And there we go. I'm going to drop that there. Cool. And then I think I do need to set the alt. So that's going to be YX1 earphones. And then the width is going to be, let's say 400. And the height is going to be, let's say 300. I'm going to save that. And there we go. We have the image there. It's a little bit too small. So we'll say, oops, we'll say 500 there. Pretty decent. Maybe 550. And then what we're going to do is we are going to create this separate box on the right here. So let's go ahead and create another box within the box. We'll grab the background color. Again, I'm using Color Picker for this. This is a Google Chrome extension. It allows you just like to literally grab the color. So that was F1, F1, F1. So we're going to set the background color to be hash F1, 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 F1. We'll save that. And then we need to have this heading and this button in it. So as I said, we can literally just borrow that from the ZX7 speaker because we just did it. And we'll grab, we won't need the whole box. We'll grab the stuff within the box and we'll drop it in within this box here. So we'll save that. We'll add in these imports so we don't get those errors. And I think, oh yeah, it's importing the button from Material UI. Pro tip, name your things different names. Import button from /button. All right, and then this is going to be, what is it, the YX1 earphones. YX1 earphones, and we'll save that. And then we need to figure out what the product ID is on that. which we can grab by going into our data.json, and we'll say slug spell it correctly. We'll say y, or no, we can say yx1. Oh, they're the first one. Fantastic. So we'll go ahead and drop that in here. So that's going to be product 1, and we'll save that. And then, as I said, we're going to do display flex. So this is, oh, you know what? It's not wrapping everything. That's the issue there. So let me go ahead and wrap that there. Awesome. And then we want to justify the content so that it is spaced between, and we'll save that. Awesome. All right, looking pretty good. As I said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat below, and I will be sure to answer them. Let's continue styling this out and finish this piece out. So I want the width here to be as wide as it can be. So let's see if it'll let me do width of 100%. Let's see what happens there. All right, now that is like, it's like, yeah, it's 100%. That's good. All right, so let's match the width to be the width of the earphone. So we'll say width 550. I'm pretty sure it's pixels. We'll say 550 pixels, and we'll save that. No, did not like that either. All right, let's see. Oh, you know what? Sorry, this is me. I'm changing the width on the wrong place. So let me just undo all I did there. Let's go here and add width 100%. All right, 100%. Awesome, perfect. That's what I expected to happen. Fantastic. Let's add in a little bit of margin left. Let's say 2 rem. Save that. That looks pretty good. I think I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, or a little bit wider, I should say. Say like 600. Or maybe 800. Maybe I need to make the width also a little bit smaller here. I'll make it to like 80%. Or 50%. Okay, there we go. 70%. That looks pretty decent. All right, and then let's go ahead and align everything within the actual box itself. So I can sort of borrow a bunch of this stuff here from our previous component and drop that in there. We'll say justify content center, but in this case we also want to align item center. So we'll put everything in the center of the page, and we'll save that. Cool. Or is it center? It's actually, no, sorry, it's left align. So we don't actually want to align it center. We want a larger margin left. So we'll do a margin left of like 10 rem. Or maybe padding left, actually. So we'll have the margin left, we'll keep that at 2 rem, and we'll say padding left of 2 rem, and we'll save that. 10 rem, sorry, we'll save that. Cool, looking pretty decent. And then the whole box now, we want to have a margin top of like, what, 4 rem? At least, maybe 6 rem? We'll leave it at, we can up it to 6. And there we go. So we have our initial product page. We have our home page pretty much ready to go there. And let's continue on and create this reusable component, and then we can create the footer, which will be used across all pages. So 2 really useful pieces there. But yeah, as I said, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I will respond to all of them, and I'll take these sort of periodic breaks so that we can talk about, you know, any questions you might have about the project. All right, so last piece we have here is, or last component that we're going to add to just the home page is this bringing you the best audio gear. So let's go ahead and create this. This is like, I don't know, like the about, I guess. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it shared because this is a shared component. I'm going to add the new file. I'm going to call it about.tsx. And really, pretty much all of this stuff can be moved into shared, so we might consider doing that in a little while, but for now, we'll just leave it there. So we'll create this here, and we're going to create this about. We'll import it onto the index page there in the about, and then we'll save that there. And then what we need to do now, we need to grab this image. This is pretty much the same style of text, a little bit less thick, but we can just adjust the font weight there. So we'll go ahead and grab those, we'll borrow that, I should say. So I'm gonna go ahead and borrow this typography style, which is actually just an H4, so nothing really fancy going on there at all. Save that. And then we need the, we need this, like, is that the same as the P tag? It's pretty similar to the P tag, so we can grab that from the hero there. We can go ahead and grab the body from the hero, drop that in there. And then we need the image. So we'll actually turn this into a box. We'll wrap it in a container just like we've been doing. And maybe in the refactor work, we can clean up a lot of this, these extraneous containers. We'll do some imports here. Update the missing imports. Cool, that worked out. And then we'll update this text here. So we'll say, bringing you the best audio gear and where it's located in the heart of New York City. All right, we'll drop that in there. And then I want to grab the color of the font here. Grab that color. Awesome, got it. That is 8D. And we're going to change the color to 8D. Save that. Awesome, working well. I think the font is a little bit too big, so maybe we'll move that back down to 1 rem. Perfect. And then if there's one thing, I don't know if you caught it, but the word best is actually orange. So we're going to go ahead and change that. We're going to use a span because it allows us to do inline text modifications. And we're just going to grab this color. I'm going to copy this color here. And then we're going to go ahead and change the color of just the word best to be that orange there. Cool, save that. Bring you the best audio gear. Awesome. Final thing we want to import here is this image. So I'm going to wrap, or actually I'm just going to import the image outside of the box. And I'm going to use next image for this again. Save that. The source is going to come from, it's probably going to be on the shared page, just because this is something that's used across. Yes, this one. So image best gear, copy relative path. This is an image that's used across the website essentially. So the way they have their assets set up, they have it in a shared folder. So we'll rely on that that sort of format in the way we build our components out, our component folders. They're on the left-hand side there. And not style, I want alt to say about image. And then the height is going to be, let's say 500. And then we'll save that and see. Oh, no, it needs the width. We're going to set the width to be, let's say 300. Let's save that and take a look at what we have. All right, it's a little bit skinny, so let's go ahead and bump that up to 500 as well, or 400, 450. Cool, looks pretty good. Looks pretty decent. All right, let's go ahead and fix up this. We'll make another box around everything and just fix it up so that it's a proper flex box. And everything sort of flows nicely and works well together. So again, using our SX prop for Material UI, we're going to set the display to be flex, and that should pop everything beside each other. We're going to give it some margin on top. Let's say 6 rem. Save that. And then I want to, within this box here, this is my typography box, I want to also display flex. but I want my flex direction to be column. And the reason I'm changing this to a flex box is so that I can align, I can justify the content to be in the center of the page. So it lines up in the center of that image, which would look aesthetically pleasing. Cool, awesome. And then finally, we do need some like margin between the two here. We could also use grid for a lot of this stuff, but we've gone ahead with Flexbox. We're gonna set that to 10 rem. We're gonna save that. And also, I think this font actually needs to be a little bit bigger. So maybe we can set the font size to be like, I don't know. Let's say 4, no, that's too big. 2.5 rem. Maybe 3.5 rem. That's too big. We'll do 3 rem. All right, cool. And we have that there. So bringing you the best audio gear located, etc., etc. We'll add some margin to the bottom of, oh, we do have, maybe we'll up the margin on the bottom there, 1.5. And then we are pretty good. Let's add a little bit more margin to the top there, just to give it a little bit more separation from the elements above it. So we'll do that there. And yeah, I think that's pretty decent. I think that looks pretty good for now. The next thing that I would want to do is actually go ahead and do the footer. But let me check out the questions. What do you think about Shad CN? I'm not sure. What is that exactly? Could you give me a little bit more information about that, what you typed in there? And I would be happy to give you my opinion on it. But I have not used it so far, unless it's like an acronym for something that I've probably used every day. It's one extreme or the other. All right, so let's go ahead and create the footer, and I'll look forward to your response in the comments. All right, so we'll create a footer component, footer.tsx, and we're gonna go ahead and create that component there, save that. We can close out a couple of these extra windows here because we don't need all of them. And we're going to go ahead and import the footer down at the bottom here. All right. And we'll go ahead and import it. Awesome. Cool. So footer is now there, right at the bottom there. Awesome. So the footer now is very similar to the nav, right? The nav, remember, we had to make it like full width and all of this. So let's go ahead and take a look at how we did our nav. So I'm pretty sure we actually had to hoist it. I might need to move this footer. What did we end up doing with it? Oh no, we left it in there. We wrapped it in a container. Okay, no, the nav is there. We just probably need to make some modifications to the container itself. All right. Got you. So there's basically a div or a box around it. So let's copy this and create the box around it. I'm actually going to just change this to a box and use SX just to be consistent with what we're doing. And then I'm going to wrap it in a container. I'm going to save that. Awesome. So yeah, there we go. We have our sort of outer container there. Perfect. I'm going to also add some margin bottom to the about person there. So we could actually just go margin and then put 0 for the second option there, just to give it some margin on the bottom there. And close that guy back out. All right, so in our footer now, what do we have? We have this little funky orange bar, which I'm sure will be a fun challenge to implement. We have the audio file link. We have a little bit of information here, the copyright, home, headphones, basically the same sort of menu that we have over there. All right, cool. Pretty straightforward, and we do have some icons here, and I think we do have the icon images for that. So let's go ahead and implement this. So as I said, we can borrow a lot of stuff from the nav. So we're going to grab this logo image from the nav, and we're going to drop that in there. And then we are going to grab the unordered list here from the nav as well. We'll drop that in there. And it's giving me an error. Oh, I need to import link from Next.js. That would help. And it's giving me an error here. Oh, you know what? I need to import image as well. Import image from next image. Cool. That fixed that error. Awesome. All right, so cool. So we have our nav. We have our initial unordered list. But we do want it on one line. So let's go ahead and wrap that in a box to begin with. So go ahead and wrap this in a box. We'll say it is of display flex. We'll save that. Awesome. And then we just need to align that so it's all nice and even. Align items to be center. We'll save that. Cool. And then we want to justify our content by spacing between it because we want them on opposite ends of the page here. So space between. Perfect. Looking pretty good. All right, next step. We're going to grab this this set of text here. And actually, I'm probably just going to borrow this styling here because it looks very, very similar. So open up our about guide one more time. Borrow this body typography. And as I said, when we refactor, we can always drop this into sort of like a reusable, we can drop into a reusable style that we can just apply and clean up our code a little bit. This is just MVP, sort of quick, get it done super quick. So that we're going to drop this in here, import the typography element, save that. And we'll copy the actual text that it's meant to display, which is this. We'll save that. Cool. Awesome. And then it looks like this and that are on the same line there. So let's go ahead and wrap that in a box and work on those stylings. So we'll wrap that in a box. And then we'll do another box here, which is going to be for our different icons there. So we're going to set the style in this box display to be flex. And then within here now, we're going to have all of our little images. So these are these little icons. So we'll say image, and then the source, or the source is going to be, I think it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So we'll copy the relative path here, drop that in there, source, and then we'll say alt equals Facebook icon, and then we'll say the width is, let's say 20, the height is also 20, we change that, and then we'll save that there. And awesome, there it is. We can probably make it a little bit bigger, maybe 25. But other than that, I think it's pretty decent right now. Cool. And then, yeah, we'll do 3 of these. And next one's going to be, is it Pinterest? Twitter. And the next one's going to be or is it, do they have it? Oh no, it's Instagram, sorry. Instagram. All right, cool. So then we'll set a display of flex on here. Save that. And then we'll do the same thing for this outer box. So we'll say justify content, and we'll say space between, and then we'll set the typography. We'll give it a max width of, like, I don't know, 10 rem, well, 20 rem. We'll start with that. Actually, maybe we need to make it bigger, 30 rem. Cool, that looks pretty good. And then we'll add some margin to the top of that box. All right, and then we will align items to the flex end so they go to the bottom, because I think our images are there at the bottom. But it's interesting that it's sending it so far down. And then we'll add a little margin left to the second two. Margin left of 0.5 rem. Save that. Maybe a whole rem. Cool. We'll add that there. And we'll add that down here. Cool. Let me take a look at why it's doing it like that. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, does it have a margin bottom? Oh yeah, it does. Let me get rid of that. Okay, cool. Perfect. Awesome. Inspect. Love using the inspect tool because you get so much information so quickly. All right, and then finally we're going to have this copyright, all rights reserved. I'm going to borrow this styling and just drop it in at the bottom there. And we're going to copy what it says here. And I think I might have dropped it in the wrong box. So we'll move that out of, oops, out of that box. Save that. Awesome. And then we just need to add some margin. Cool. Looks pretty good. I think the last thing I want to do is, yeah, let's see if we can add in that little orange bar there just to finish out our design. Oh, you know what? I think I do have a margin right on that earphone element there. So let me get rid of that because otherwise it's going to be super weird. Because, yeah, it's not perfectly aligned there. All right, cool. And let's try and add in that the little box there. So if I make a box, or just a self-contained box, self-closing box, I should say, and I set the background color to be, I think it's this orange, so I'm just going to grab it. Save that. Awesome. And then I'm going to just set the height to be like 0.25 rem and the width to be like 5 rem and save that. It's pretty close. I think it's probably about 10 rem or 8 rem. It's about the length of the, not quite the length of the icon. All right, cool. And then we're going to set the position to be relative. Save that. And then we're going to set maybe the top to be 0 and see if that works. Let me inspect that, see what's going on there. Okay, so this is within the container. Oh, because I've added padding to the container. Or maybe top minus 20 pixels. Okay, cool. So I can just force it to go up a little bit. So let's say minus 40 pixels. Too much. 32 pixels. Perfect. Awesome. Cool. So let's go ahead and push all of our code because we've been doing a whole bunch of stuff and we have not pushed any of it. So I'm going to go ahead and say completed initial main page design and push that up to GitHub. So now if you go on GitHub, once that finishes pushing, you should be able to see that up there. All right, let me see if anybody has any questions at all. Because if you do, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We can do one more little tweak here before we finish up for today. We're gonna go ahead and remove some of the stylings here because as you can see, we want it to be this like sort of sleek black look. So if we go back to our button, I think we can actually just pass in different params here that will allow us to get that look there. So if I go, why am I getting here? All right, if I go to the button here and I say the variant is outlined. If the variant is outlined, then I want the text color. So let me just say, so if I say, or you know, actually I can just pass in the, no, but I want it to be consistent. So let me say border, and then we say if variant equals outlined. If yes, then we want it to be color. If no, then null. And then background, again, we're going to do this check. We're going to reverse it. The variant does not equal outlined. So we want it to be color. If not, we want it to be null. And then color, same check. Same check. Instead of null, though, I think I want it to be auto, like whatever it would have automatically been. I don't know if that's going to work. Probably not. I think it's probably going to be white. That's going to be the other option. Or let me try auto in quotes, see if that works. Try not to break the whole app, but I do want to fix this here. All right, so let me pass in the color on the home page there and these speaker buttons. So let me say color is black and see what that does. All right, cool. But I do need to update the border. So let me go ahead and do that. So border is going to be, because you do need to add more props when it's the border. So it's going to be 1 pixel solid, whatever that is. Perfect. That's pretty decent. All right, so then I'm just going to go ahead and update this one as well. I'm going to say, this is, sorry, not that one, the earphones. We're going to say color is going to be black and save that there. And, oh, why is it not taking the color there? Variant is outlined. Variant is outlined. Color is black. Color is black. 1 pixel solid black. Variant equals outlined. And the color. Choose color. Is it because this is the way I did the link? That might be it. Let's go ahead and look at the links over here and see if that is what's making the difference. href1, href5. That looks pretty decent. All right, let's go ahead and just push that up. I'm going to say update button styles. And we'll commit that, push those changes up. All right, and that's pretty decent. That's pretty decent what we have there. I think another sort of improvement we could add is the hover state for a lot of these. So like one of the cool things about using SX, which you can't use here, but it's like when you have a hover state, you can add it right into the style here. So that's something we can consider doing. We could also add in a sort of a number of items in the cart here. So if we go to our nav and we go to our cart, right now we have, or no, actually in our nav, sorry, we have our cart icon, but right where our cart option, all right, yeah, our cart icon here. But what would be really cool to have is like the brackets with the number next to it, right? Just right next to that image. So what I could do here is I can say, let's see, we got to grab the cart. So let's go ahead and grab the cart from state. So we'll say const cart equals use app selector bracket state dot cart, and grab that, and we'll say this right here is going to be cart dot length. and then we'll wrap it in brackets. Save that. And then I'm actually just going to go ahead and wrap it in a typography element. We're going to set the color to be white. We're going to save that. Awesome. So now that once we have one item in the cart, that will show up there. Cool. So if I see product, add to cart, we'll see that we have one item in the cart. Now, as I mentioned before, we'll start to sort of see these larger bugs now because our cart is not persisting across more than one page. So that's something that we can go ahead and add in. So if we add it, if we take a look at Redux persisting on refresh, let me save that. We will want to make sure that we actually, use like local storage or something like that in order to persist state. Whenever I'm doing something that I haven't done in a while, or I want to, something that's just new to me, I want to make sure that I look up the documentation and make sure that I'm doing it correctly. So this is a particular library called Redux Persist that could work for what we want to do here. Let me take a look. This is one option that we could use. Persisting your state. It seems to be the fairly popular option to use, unless this person's just making a bunch of posts on different pages. Let's see. We could set it to session storage. Set it to local storage. And again, we're using Redux Persist. So I think using Redux Persist is probably the way to go. It looks fairly straightforward in the way that we need to set it up. And yeah, I think it's probably what we're going to have to end up using in order to persist that data between different states, right? So I think we'll probably come in and install this in the next section and work on that. But if you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments, drop them in the chat below, and let me know if you do have any other comments or questions. And I'm going to go ahead and do a bit more research into this library, and then in our next section we're going to go ahead and install Redux Persist. We're going to go ahead and clean up everything we need to clean up with the cart and the state, make sure that our pages are sort of displaying correctly, and then we're going to go ahead and build out these larger product pages, so where you have a display of all different types of products. We've already built out sort of 75% of this. Like we built out this, we built out the bottom portion here, we built out the footer, so we really just need to go ahead and build out these sort of like headphone sections here. So we're going to go ahead and tackle that in the next stream. Look out, subscribe to make sure that you don't miss it. Turn on the notifications to make sure that you're able to see it when it does come up. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one. All right, see you.